Have you ever wondered why some people seem to maintain their energy, recover quickly from exercise, stay mentally sharp, and age more gracefully, even as the years go by? And what if I told you that one of the most important molecules responsible for all of those processes is something most people have never even heard of? It's called NAD. NAD, short for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, is found inside every single cell in your body. In fact, without it, your cells cannot efficiently produce energy, repair DNA, manage inflammation, or maintain healthy mitochondria, the tiny energy factories that keep you alive. Yet here's the surprising part. As we age, our ability to maintain optimal NAD function becomes increasingly challenged. Chronic stress, poor sleep, excess calories, insulin resistance, inflammation, alcohol, and a sedentary lifestyle can all place additional strain on the body's NAD-dependent systems. Researchers now consider NAD metabolism one of the central regulators of healthy aging, recovery, and cellular resilience. But there is also an important nuance that often gets lost in the marketing. Many people have been told that simply taking an expensive NAD supplement will magically reverse aging. What the research shows is much more interesting and much more useful. NAD is not just a supplement story, it's a lifestyle story, it's a metabolism story, it's a mitochondrial story, and it's a story about how your daily habits influence the ability of your cells to create energy, repair damage, and control inflammation. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Every day, your cells are constantly producing energy, repairing DNA damage, fighting oxidative stress, and responding to inflammation. All of these processes consume NAD. When demand becomes too high and production can't keep up, cellular efficiency begins to decline. Think of NAD as the rechargeable battery that powers your body's repair systems. When that battery is fully charged, your cells perform maintenance efficiently. When it starts running low, recovery slows down, inflammation can increase, energy production becomes less efficient, and the aging process accelerates. In today's video, we're going to break down exactly how NAD works, why it matters for inflammation and longevity, and most importantly, the practical science-backed strategies that can naturally support healthy NAD metabolism. We'll discuss fasting, exercise, sleep, nutrition, mitochondrial health, and the truth about NAD-boosting supplements. And by the end, you'll understand why some of the most powerful ways to support healthy aging don't begin in a supplement bottle. They begin with the habits that influence your cellular energy systems every single day. If you're interested in optimizing your energy, recovery, metabolism, and long-term health naturally, make sure you're subscribed, because this is exactly the kind of science-based content we cover here regularly. Let's begin by understanding what NAD actually does, because once you understand its role, many of the symptoms people associate with aging start to make much more sense. Most people think aging is simply about getting older, but from a biological perspective, aging is largely a process of declining cellular function. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Every second, trillions of cells are converting nutrients into energy. Your brain is firing electrical signals. Your muscles are repairing microscopic damage. Your immune system is scanning for threats. And your DNA is constantly being exposed to stress from normal metabolism, environmental toxins, UV radiation, and inflammation. All of these processes require energy, and NAD sits at the center of that energy-producing network. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your body is a massive city. Your mitochondria are the power plants. The food you eat is the fuel supply. But NAD is the electrical wiring that allows energy to move throughout the entire system. Without the wiring, the power plants cannot efficiently distribute electricity. Without NAD, your cells cannot efficiently convert nutrients into usable cellular energy. This is why NAD is involved in hundreds of metabolic reactions throughout the body. It helps shuttle electrons during energy production, supports mitochondrial function, and activates important longevity proteins called sirtuins. These sirtuins help regulate inflammation, DNA repair, stress resistance, and metabolic health. Research over the last 2 decades has identified NAD-dependent sirtuin activity as one of the key mechanisms involved in healthy aging and cellular resilience. What the research shows is that when NAD availability declines, these protective systems become less efficient. Cells produce energy less effectively, DNA damage accumulates more easily, and inflammatory pathways become harder to control. Now here's where this becomes highly relevant to modern life. Many people are unknowingly creating conditions that increase NAD demand every single day. Poor sleep, excess sugar intake, insulin resistance, chronic psychological stress, frequent alcohol consumption, lack of physical activity, persistent inflammation. Each of these factors places additional stress on the body and increases the workload of cellular repair systems. Think about it like continuously withdrawing money from a bank account without making enough deposits. Eventually, the balance starts dropping. Your body is remarkably adaptive, but over time, chronic metabolic stress can reduce cellular efficiency and resilience. This is one reason why people often describe feeling older than their age. Recovery takes longer, energy becomes less stable, exercise feels harder, brain fog becomes more common, inflammation lingers. The good news is that many of the same lifestyle factors that contribute to metabolic decline can also be used strategically to improve cellular function. And that's exactly what we'll explore next. Because before we talk about boosting NAD, we first need to understand what is draining it. If this is helpful so far, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. Every week, we break down complex health science into practical strategies you can actually use to improve your energy, metabolism, and long-term health. Now that you understand why NAD is so important, we need to address a critical question. If NAD supports energy production, DNA repair, recovery, and healthy aging, why do so many people struggle with fatigue, chronic inflammation, slower healing, and accelerated aging in the first place? The answer often comes down to one overlooked principle. Your body is constantly spending NAD. And when the rate of spending exceeds the rate of replenishment, problems begin to appear. Here's what's really going on inside your body. One of the biggest drains on NAD is chronic inflammation. Inflammation itself is not bad. In fact, it's a necessary survival mechanism. When you cut your finger, fight off an infection, or recover from a workout, inflammation helps initiate healing. The problem is chronic inflammation. Unlike short-term inflammation, chronic inflammation acts like a fire that never completely goes out. Every day, your immune system continues responding to signals that something is wrong. These signals can come from excess body fat, poor gut health, blood sugar instability, processed foods, sleep deprivation, environmental toxins, chronic stress, or sedentary living. And all of this increases the demand for cellular repair. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your house has a small leak in the roof. A repair crew can easily fix it. But if the leak continues day after day, month after month, the crew never stops working. They consume more materials, more energy, and more resources just to keep up. That's exactly what chronic inflammation does to your body. One of the major repair systems activated during cellular stress is a family of enzymes involved in DNA repair. These enzymes are incredibly important because they help maintain the integrity of your genetic material. However, they consume significant amounts of NAD during periods of ongoing damage and stress. Research has shown that chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, and metabolic dysfunction can increase the activity of these repair pathways, creating greater demand for NAD and reducing its availability for other important functions such as mitochondrial performance and cellular resilience. This is where insulin resistance becomes especially important. When blood sugar remains elevated for long periods, cells are exposed to greater oxidative stress and inflammatory signaling. Think about sugar molecules like tiny sparks. A few sparks are manageable, but constant sparks increase wear and tear throughout the system. Over time, this creates more cellular damage, more repair work, and a greater requirement for NAD-dependent processes. And then there's stress. Many people think of stress as purely emotional, but your body experiences stress physically as well. Poor sleep, overtraining, skipping recovery, constant cortisol elevation. These factors can amplify inflammatory signaling and accelerate biological wear and tear. The result? Your body spends more time repairing damage and less time optimizing performance. This is why someone can eat relatively well, take supplements, and still feel exhausted if inflammation and metabolic dysfunction remain unresolved. Root cause thinking matters. Instead of asking, how do I boost NAD? A better question is, what is causing my body to consume so much NAD in the first place? For many people, reducing inflammation is one of the fastest ways to improve cellular efficiency. Start with the fundamentals. Prioritize blood sugar control. Reduce ultra-processed foods, improve sleep quality, walk after meals, build muscle through resistance training, manage chronic stress, support gut health. These interventions don't just reduce symptoms, they help lower the metabolic burden that continuously drains your body's repair resources. And once you stop draining the bucket, the strategies we'll discuss next become dramatically more effective. Because one of the most powerful natural ways to support healthy NAD metabolism isn't found in a supplement bottle at all. It's found in movement. And the science behind exercise and NAD is fascinating. If this is helpful so far, consider subscribing. Understanding the root causes of inflammation and metabolic dysfunction can completely change how you approach health, energy, and longevity. When most people think about exercise, they think about burning calories, losing weight, or building muscle. But one of the most remarkable benefits of exercise happens at a level you can't see. Deep inside your cells, exercise is sending a signal that tells your body to become stronger, more efficient, and more resilient. And one of the key molecules involved in that adaptation is NAD. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Every time you exercise, especially during moderate to intense activity, your muscles require a massive increase in energy production. To meet that demand, your mitochondria have to work harder. This temporary stress creates an important biological response. Your body interprets exercise as a challenge that requires adaptation. So instead of simply recovering to baseline, it upgrades the system. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine you own a small factory. If customer demand suddenly doubles, you can't continue operating with the same number of workers and machines. You either improve efficiency or expand production capacity. Exercise creates a similar situation inside your cells. As energy demand rises, the body responds by improving mitochondrial function, increasing energy-producing capacity, and activating pathways involved in repair and resilience. One of the major regulators of this process is a cellular energy sensor called AMPK. Think of AMPK as your body's metabolic thermostat. When energy levels begin to drop during exercise, AMPK activates programs that increase energy production, improve insulin sensitivity, stimulate fat burning, and support healthy NAD metabolism. At the same time, exercise activates pathways associated with mitochondrial biogenesis, the creation of new mitochondria. This is important because mitochondria are not just energy producers. They are also major regulators of inflammation, metabolic health, and aging. Research consistently shows that regular physical activity improves mitochondrial quality, supports metabolic flexibility, and enhances the activity of longevity-related pathways linked to NAD and sirtuins. This helps explain why physically active individuals often maintain better metabolic health, stronger recovery capacity, and greater resilience as they age. Now, here's an important distinction. More exercise is not always better. Many people assume that if some exercise is beneficial, excessive exercise must be even better. Not necessarily. Remember, exercise is a stressor. The benefits come from adaptation and recovery. Without adequate sleep, nutrition, and recovery time, excessive training can increase inflammation, elevate cortisol, and create additional physiological stress. The goal is strategic stress, not chronic stress. For most people, an ideal weekly framework looks something like this. Resistance training, 3 to 5 times per week. Daily walking, especially after meals, 2 to 3 cardiovascular sessions that challenge the heart and lungs. Regular movement throughout the day rather than prolonged sitting. Even a simple 10 to 15-minute walk after meals can improve glucose control, reduce insulin demand, and support overall metabolic health. The key message is this: exercise doesn't simply burn calories. It teaches your body how to produce energy more efficiently. It improves mitochondrial performance, it enhances metabolic flexibility, and it creates the biological environment where healthy NAD-dependent pathways can thrive. In many ways, movement is one of the most powerful anti-aging signals available to humans. And the next strategy may be even more powerful. Because while exercise challenges your cells to become stronger, fasting challenges them to become more efficient, and that's where the story gets really interesting. If there is one lifestyle strategy that has generated enormous interest among longevity researchers over the past decade, it's fasting, and for good reason. When done appropriately, fasting doesn't simply help people lose weight. It changes the metabolic environment inside the body in ways that can support cellular repair, mitochondrial function, metabolic flexibility, and healthy NAD-dependent pathways. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Most people spend the majority of their waking hours in a fed state. Breakfast, snacks, lunch, more snacks, dinner, late night eating. As a result, insulin remains elevated for much of the day. Now, insulin is not the enemy. It's a vital hormone that helps move nutrients into cells. The problem occurs when insulin stays chronically elevated because of frequent eating, excess refined carbohydrates, or insulin resistance. When insulin remains high, the body receives a constant signal that nutrients are abundant. In this state, the focus is growth and storage, not repair. Fasting changes that signal. As insulin levels begin to fall and stored energy starts being used, the body shifts toward maintenance and repair. Think of it like a business. When customers are constantly flooding through the front door, employees spend all their time serving customers. There's little opportunity to clean, repair equipment, organize inventory, or improve operations. But when business slows down temporarily, maintenance crews can get to work. That's what fasting does biologically. It creates an opportunity for cellular housekeeping. One of the reasons researchers are interested in fasting is its relationship with NAD and cellular energy sensing pathways. During periods of energy scarcity, enzymes involved in longevity and stress adaptation become more active. This includes pathways connected to AMPK, sirtuins, and mitochondrial function, all of which rely on healthy NAD availability. What the research shows is that fasting can create a metabolic environment that supports these repair-oriented processes while simultaneously improving insulin sensitivity and metabolic flexibility. In simple terms, your body becomes better at switching between burning glucose and burning stored fat. This flexibility is a hallmark of metabolic health. Now let's talk about practical application. You do not need extreme fasting protocols to experience benefits. In fact, consistency usually beats intensity. For many people, a simple 12 to 14-hour overnight fast is an excellent starting point. For example, finish dinner at 7 p.m., eat breakfast at 9 a.m. That's a 14-hour fasting window. As metabolic health improves, some individuals may comfortably extend this to 16 hours a few days per week. However, fasting is not about starvation. It's not about forcing yourself to suffer, and it's not appropriate for everyone. The goal is to create strategic periods of lower insulin and reduce nutrient signaling so the body can engage its natural repair mechanisms. To maximize benefits, focus on what happens during your eating window. Prioritize protein, consume nutrient-dense whole foods, include healthy fats, control refined carbohydrates, support blood sugar stability. Remember, fasting cannot compensate for poor nutrition. The most powerful results occur when fasting is combined with high-quality food, regular exercise, and sufficient sleep. And here's something many people overlook. One of the fastest ways to undermine all of these benefits is poor sleep. You can exercise perfectly. You can follow an ideal fasting schedule. You can eat an excellent diet. But if sleep is compromised, many of the pathways that regulate recovery, inflammation, hormones, and NAD metabolism begin to suffer. Which brings us to one of the most underestimated anti-aging tools available: sleep. If this is helpful so far, consider subscribing. Every day, we explore evidence-based strategies to improve metabolic health, energy, recovery, and longevity naturally. Sleep is often treated like a luxury, something we squeeze in after work, family responsibilities, social commitments, and endless screen time. But from a biological perspective, sleep is not a luxury at all. It's one of the most important recovery processes your body performs. And if your goal is to support healthy NAD metabolism, reduce inflammation, improve recovery, and slow the aging process, sleep deserves far more attention than most people give it. Here's what's really going on inside your body. While you're sleeping, your body is far from inactive. In fact, some of the most important repair processes of the day occur during deep sleep. Hormones are regulated, immune function is coordinated, damaged proteins are cleared, memories are consolidated, cellular repair systems become highly active. And your brain's waste removal network, often referred to as the glymphatic system, increases its activity to help clear metabolic byproducts that accumulate during waking hours. Think of sleep as the overnight maintenance shift for your body. During the day, the factory is operating at full capacity. Machines are running, products are being made, energy is being consumed, wear and tear accumulates. At night, the maintenance crew arrives, equipment is repaired, waste is removed, systems are recalibrated, problems are identified before they become larger issues. Now imagine eliminating the maintenance crew for several nights. Eventually, performance starts to decline. That's exactly what happens with chronic sleep deprivation. Research consistently shows that insufficient sleep contributes to increased inflammation, impaired glucose regulation, elevated cortisol, reduced insulin sensitivity, and poorer recovery. In other words, many of the same factors that accelerate NAD consumption also increase when sleep quality declines. And there's another fascinating connection. NAD metabolism and circadian rhythms appear to be closely linked. Your circadian rhythm is the internal biological clock that helps regulate hormone production, metabolism, energy levels, and sleep-wake cycles over a 24-hour period. Scientists have discovered that NAD-dependent enzymes help regulate circadian biology, while circadian rhythms also influence NAD-related processes. When your sleep schedule becomes highly irregular, these systems can become less synchronized. Think of it like an orchestra. When every musician follows the conductor, the performance is smooth and coordinated. But when different sections start following different rhythms, the quality of the performance deteriorates. Your hormones, metabolism, recovery systems, and cellular repair mechanisms work best when they operate in synchrony. This is why sleep timing matters almost as much as sleep duration. So what can you do? Start with the fundamentals. Aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep most nights. Maintain a consistent bedtime and wake-up time. Get natural sunlight exposure within the first hour after waking. Reduce bright artificial light exposure in the evening. Avoid large meals and excessive alcohol close to bedtime. Keep your bedroom cool, dark, and quiet. Limit stimulating screen exposure before sleep. Many people search for the perfect supplement while overlooking these foundational behaviors. Yet these simple habits can dramatically improve sleep quality, metabolic health, inflammation control, and recovery capacity. And when sleep improves, nearly every longevity strategy becomes more effective. But now we arrive at the question many viewers have been waiting for. If NAD is so important, should you simply take an NAD-boosting supplement? Let's examine what the evidence actually says about NMN, NR, and other popular NAD-enhancing compounds, and separate the science from the marketing. Now let's address the question that has fueled countless headlines, podcasts, and anti-aging discussions. Can you simply take a supplement to increase NAD and slow aging? The answer is more nuanced than most marketing claims would have you believe. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Your cells don't absorb NAD efficiently from the bloodstream and simply use it directly. Instead, the body relies heavily on precursor compounds, nutrients that help your cells produce NAD through their own metabolic pathways. The two most popular NAD precursors today are NMN, which stands for nicotinamide mononucleotide, and NR, or nicotinamide riboside. These compounds have attracted significant scientific interest because studies have shown they can increase NAD availability in humans and animals under certain conditions. But here's where context matters. Increasing NAD levels on a lab measurement is not the same thing as reversing aging. Those are two very different claims. What the research shows is that NAD precursors can support healthy cellular metabolism and may improve certain markers related to mitochondrial function, muscle performance, and metabolic health. However, researchers are still investigating the long-term clinical impact on aging, disease prevention, and lifespan. In other words, the science is promising, but it's still evolving. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your car is underperforming. Adding high-quality fuel can certainly help, but if the engine is damaged, the tires are flat, the oil hasn't been changed, and the brakes are failing, premium fuel alone won't solve the problem. That's how many people approach supplements. They try to optimize a single molecule while ignoring the lifestyle factors that determine how effectively that molecule is used. Remember everything we've discussed so far. Exercise improves mitochondrial function, fasting activates repair pathways, sleep reduces inflammation and supports recovery, blood sugar control lowers metabolic stress. These interventions create the biological environment where NAD-dependent systems can function optimally. Without that foundation, supplements often produce disappointing results. So what does a practical NAD support protocol look like? Start with lifestyle first. Prioritize resistance training 3 to 5 times weekly. Walk daily. Maintain good sleep hygiene. Avoid chronic overeating. Support insulin sensitivity. Control inflammation through whole food nutrition. Only after those foundations are in place should supplementation even enter the conversation. For individuals interested in NAD-supporting nutrients, some commonly discussed options include NMN, NR, vitamin B3-containing foods and nutrients. Magnesium, which supports hundreds of energy-related reactions. Polyphenol-rich foods such as berries, green tea, cocoa, and colorful vegetables that support mitochondrial and metabolic health. Notice something important. The most effective longevity strategies are not exotic. They're surprisingly simple. The challenge isn't complexity, the challenge is consistency. And this brings us to one final insight. If you truly want to support NAD, recovery, inflammation control, and healthy aging, you need to think beyond individual supplements. You need to think in terms of building an entire lifestyle that supports cellular energy production. Because longevity isn't created by a pill, it's created by the daily habits that determine how your cells function year after year. If this is helpful so far, consider subscribing. We focus on practical, science-based strategies that help you improve energy, metabolic health, recovery, and longevity naturally, without hype and without shortcuts.